U.S. Border Patrol agents exchange gunfire with Mexico drug cartels. This actual video here, this was taken a few days ago. This is a U.S. citizen that was shot by the cartels. And if I understand correctly, he was just hiking and just caught a stray. I don't know if they were shooting at him or if they were just being buck wild and shooting. But Newsweek reports U.S. Border Patrol agents near Fronton, Texas, reportedly exchanged gunfire at the southern border with suspected drug cartel gunmen from Mexico. There were no injuries in the incident near Fronton Island, an uninhabited island in the Rio Grande in Starr County, Texas, according to reports. The island is a disputed territory about which Texas and Mexico have made conflicting ownership claims. Newsweek reached out to U.S. Customs, the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Border Patrol, and the Texas Department of Public Safety via email for comment. News Nation's Ali Bradley reported that while the suspected cartel has fired shots from the Mexican side of the territory for years, things in the area have escalated in unprecedented ways since President Donald Trump was elected, even giving orders to shoot at agents recently. So if they're receiving orders from the cartels, which ostensibly the guys that are, the foot soldiers or what have you, they're the guys that are taking orders from the higher ups. If the higher ups are actually giving orders to shoot at American, Border Patrol and likely in the future, American soldiers and Marines, what does that say about the U.S. posture towards the cartels? They've been designated terrorists. Do they have to start worrying about, airstrikes? Because honestly, it's not like Mexico can stop us.
Well, it's interesting. It shows how silly the whole situation is, especially what the left is saying, that everyone coming here is just, innocent and that there's nothing we should be afraid of. But at the same time, they're tacitly admitting that it's very dangerous there. There's violent people there, but we're supposed to believe that everyone flooding into America are going to be model citizens and are completely innocent. And I think it just shows the type of people that are there on the other side of the border, and it justifies why Trump has taken the stance he has taken, which is we don't know who these people are that are flooding into our country from this dangerous country, and we should get rid of them. And so I think it just proves that what Trump's doing is the right thing, and that the people coming over aren't a bunch of innocent model citizens.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. And that's something that I think a lot of the Democrats are pressing, is that there's this idea that the people who are crossing the border are all innocents, right? They're all just people seeking a better life. And I think that is so, that's so poorly thought out, because these are people also that are paying human smugglers, the cartels to bring people across. And they're coming from all over the world with nefarious purposes. There were already people coming across with terrorist plots. J.D. Vance was talking about that yesterday on CBS. There was somebody who was trying to do a terror attack in Oklahoma. So I think that we've seen that it makes a lot of sense for Trump to refer to the cartels as terrorists. And the terrorist cartels think of themselves that way too. The gang, what is it? The Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. They have an open policy that you can, if you're part of that gang, you can go ahead and shoot law enforcement. That's part of it. That's part of what they're doing.
And to think that they're not also sending some of their cartel members in as just migrants, to think that they wouldn't do that is beyond naive. Of course they are. We had an open border policy. You better bet they're sending tons of people over into our country.
I've talked to some people on Twitter about this, or on X about this, and I've essentially floated the idea that the United States has spent the past 20 years dealing with terrorist organizations like this. Now, the U.S. is exceedingly good at dismantling terrorist organizations like this. When it comes to the action of dismantling them, the politics aside, right? You talk about what happened in Afghanistan after the Taliban was expelled. And then you're like, okay, well, there were problems afterwards. And then you talk about what happened in Iraq after the Iraqi government was taken apart. And then they, basically subdued Iraq to a large degree. But then the politics got involved and the rules of engagement became a problem. The United States can, and also what the United States did to ISIS, the Islamic State, completely annihilated, took them out almost entirely. But when the U.S. leaves, then you have a power vacuum. Then these organizations can come back. But with a situation where the U.S. isn't going anywhere, it's not like the U.S. is going to go back. Like if the U.S. were to begin operations in Mexico and work with the Mexican government to actually rout out the cartels, it's not like the U.S. is going to leave. The United States is still right there. If they're sending people over the border, the U.S. is not going anywhere. So the idea that the U.S. could leave and essentially fumble the ball on the peace is what usually is how it's characterized. That's not really an option this time. And so the thing that people bring up is, well, we're going to see terrorist attacks by the cartels in the U.S. And while that's totally possible, it's not like that wasn't a possibility when you were dealing with other terrorist organizations. I mean, the whole war on terror started because 3,000 people died on 9/11. Like, that's what set the whole thing off, an actual terror attack in the U.S. And there were a handful of attempts, and some that were actually successful. The Pulse nightclub comes to mind. And then most of them were random, individuals like lone wolf stuff. Do you guys think that the United States, first of all, should actually get into that kind of action with the cartels? Because if you think of it, like 100,000 people a year or something like that die of fentanyl, and there's probably 1 million people in some kind of being trafficked somehow over the border. 500,000 of them are kids, that are being raped multiple times a day. Is this something that the U.S. should actually start to do, to start to work with the Mexican government, try to get them to actually clean up their government because they're all in bed with the cartels, and actually start taking out the upper echelon of the cartels?
I think they definitely should, but it's silly to do anything in another country if you're not going to protect your own border and prevent them from coming over here. Why are we sending soldiers to other countries to fight and die if we are just going to allow them to come into our country carte blanche with zero repercussions? Why are our soldiers fighting anywhere if we're just going to leave our border open? So first, we need to secure our border. And then, yeah, Phil, I think absolutely if we have to send them over into Mexico to do some kind of operations, then do that too. But we need to do both.
Do you think that the Trump administration is going to put the effort in to do what it wasn't capable of doing? I think that there's a mandate from the American people, right? The American people are significantly aware. Like, there's a general awareness that there's at least 10 million, probably 20 million illegal immigrants that have come over the border, and that the border is a real problem. Do you think that the Trump administration is going to do this?
They already did in his first week last week. They sent 10,000 troops with military-grade weapons and airplanes and helicopters over to the border. So that right there says, yes, he's going to do something. That we're only 7 days into his presidency.
Yeah.
Have they sent artillery down there yet?
Well, I don't know that artillery is actually the right piece of equipment. If you do need something because artillery generally tends to be like area denial. So you'll shoot you'll shoot artillery rounds, and those will explode over an area meant to take out large groups of infantry. It would be more likely that they would have drones, AC-130s, and that kind of something that's more precise than artillery, because artillery takes out large areas.
Yeah, like with this gunfire, if a foreign country is firing across our border at American citizens, that might go on for a little while until the artillery strikes begin, or until it's just like take the area out, level it. I mean, I can see this thing escalating really, really fast, and the rest of the world, people that don't like the United States, getting involved through the Mexican side, it becoming an all-out war on our border. 30 miles, 180 miles away from the border is just no man's land. Like, I would not want to be living near the border right now if this thing is looking like a war is about to open up on our southern border. We haven't had a border war since 1812, I think.
I think that's right.
Before the age of like artillery, really, it was like cannons and stuff. Now we've got like, I don't know how long range these artillery are. You could probably shoot 1,000 miles with these stupid rockets.
No, artillery, if you're talking about guns, if you're talking about artillery, they top out around 20, 30 miles, if I understand.
And then you got
correctly.
like rocket artillery.
Rockets are different, and missiles and cruise missiles and stuff like that.
I feel the fervor of 9/11 right now, where people are like, go get the terrorists, go get them. but it's on the border. It's not like it's over there where the collateral damage that we create is actually to our benefit. It's, I don't know, man.
I don't know that collateral damage was to our benefit. I feel like collateral damage is generally to our detriment because nobody wants to see.
This might be the first war against terror that is actually beneficial domestically.
Yeah.
You know, because we would be preventing massive gangs from coming in and destroying, you know, the U.S. population with fentanyl and other drugs, from bringing children across who really shouldn't be anywhere near this situation, from all of the rapes, all of this stuff, all of the extortion. And there's lots of reports too of people, once they get to the U.S., being forced to pay back the money that they gave, that the cartels spent to get them across the border. And that's how they're pressed into domestic servitude, which is a big problem that no one ever talks about. I mean, everyone talks about sex slavery and prostitution and forced prostitution, but there's a lot of domestic entrapment as well. I mean, there were a group of people in Queens. There were like deaf illegal immigrants working in a hotel room in Queens, and they were not allowed to leave. That was a few years ago. I remember that story. So I think that it would be useful. I don't know that the government of Mexico is particularly open to working with Trump at this point. You know, they've balked at the tariffs. So is the Canadian government. But I think that what we've seen with this whole situation with Colombia too, where, you know, the president of Colombia refused to take back a plane of illegal immigrants. And he said, you're not treating these people with dignity. Well, you know what's not treating them with dignity is making it so that people don't feel comfortable to stay in Colombia, right? And the U.S. enacted a free trade agreement with Colombia under George W. Bush that reduced tariffs on the U.S., you know, for exports to Colombia. And the U.S., I think there was like a 35% tariff on American goods going to Colombia. That got reduced. And part of the deal was to revitalize the Colombian economy so that people wanted to stay there. So what has Colombia done in the past 15 or so years? Have they done anything to help that situation? Have they done anything to make their citizens want to stay there and revitalize their own country? Just speaking as an American, I don't want to go to some other country and make that country better. I really just want my country to be better, you know, and maybe like that's a little overly patriotic and simplistic, but that's what I'm interested in. And I feel like if I were from some other country, that's what I would want too. You know, if I were Colombian, I'd be like, that's right. I'm Colombian. This is my nation. I want it to be awesome. Why would you not want that? And so the president of Colombia said, you know, you're sending people back on military flights. That's so undignified. How could you do that? You have to treat our people with more dignity. He hasn't treated them with any dignity when they cross the border illegally and come into other countries and ditch their passports at the border or whatever else they do to try and claim that they're asylum seekers or whatever else. And so when Trump was just like, fine, you don't want to do it, that's a 25% tariff. Oh, you're going to talk back some more? Now that's 50%. Oh, you still won't accept your own people back to their home, to their country where they were born? Now we're not going to issue diplomatic visas. You know, get your people out of the country. Oh, you still don't want to do it? Now there's sanctions on your family.
So you mentioned.
And so the next thing that the president of Colombia did was he said, oh, okay, do you need my plane to help you? And he offered his presidential plane to help.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.